This is Colin O'Keefe for LXBN TV, and my guest today is Steve Honig, a corporate and securities lawyer at Duane Morris, and author on The Law and Other Anomalies. Today we're talking about the Occupy movement. Not only is this a subject I've read Steve's many posts about on his publication, but his office is actually directly above where the Occupy Boston encampment used to be. Steve, starting off with a question that's often asked about this Occupy movement, what are your thoughts on the popular criticism that these Occupy protesters, don't have a single united message, or even that they need to come up with a solution for what they're protesting?
Well, I think they actually do have a unified message, but they also have a lot of ancillary messages. Whenever you have a protest movement, you attract protesters. But if you were to go down to an Occupy site, talk to people, and learn what the repetitive elements are of what they're saying, a central theme comes through, and that is a sense of economic inequality and lack of opportunity and the risk that presents not only for the people who are on the site, but for society at large, including some of the business folk who raise the point that they don't have a central theme. I met some people who were protesters, and they were one person with a sign. But if you talk to the people over time, you find that there is a central theme to the Occupy movement, at least in Boston.
Certainly, certainly. What are your thoughts on this as kind of a commentary on the state of democracy in America and also around the world? We've seen it, in Egypt and other places. Just, what are your thoughts on that? Is this a positive movement for democracy in America?
I think it is. I think it's an expression of our democracy. It is political speech. It is why the Occupy movement, although the police have moved it out in some places, including Boston, lasted for so long in so many places. We have a tradition of protecting political speech and also a legal tradition of understanding that sometimes symbolic action is the equivalent of speech. And I think that it was tolerated here. There was a reasonable amount of public support and understanding for it. And I actually think that the police, at least in Boston, and the city government in Boston were pretty measured in their response and relatively gentle as these things go when they finally did move to break down the Occupy encampment. I was a legal observer in the 60s and early 70s in the peace movement, and I think that the way in which government reacted and respected democratic values, if you will, with respect to Occupy was admirable and indeed much more favorable than what I've seen in the past. With respect to the world, I think it's a coincidence that things blew up in a lot of places. I think what's happened in Occupy is an American reaction, perhaps a uniquely American reaction to what is perceived to be an American problem, a closing of opportunity and the American dream. I can't imagine that Egypt and Libya had anything to do with Occupy, and no one at Occupy was thinking about the Middle East when they were gathering around in their tents and shivering.
As you mentioned before, the Occupy Boston movement has been pushed out of their area. Here in Seattle, it used to be right downtown, and then it moved from downtown Seattle up to Capitol Hill to Seattle Central Community College, and now on my way home every day I walk past where it's empty and there's a bunch of ropes that say under construction, even though it's obvious, there's no construction going on. What do you think happens with these protests around the country? And then if whether it be winter or police action that may wipe them out, what impact will that have on their legacy if they don't make it to spring or if they, die off shortly?
I think that's a very good question, but a very hard one, and I think an unknowable answer. Among other things that we don't know is what, if anything, they're going to be able to achieve in other locations, and whether the fundamentally anarchic structure of Occupy will morph into something that can survive the absence of a physical space. But the main thing is that I think their message has, to some degree, been integrated into the fabric of our public discourse here in the United States. There's been a tremendous amount of press, and there have been scholarly studies and newspaper articles in the Wall Street Journal, the Boston Globe, the New York Times, about what's happening in our society. and the emphasis that Occupy has no doubt embedded in the perception of people in politics and people in society at large, I think will not be lost. It may be hard to identify as a separate thing, but I think that in that sense, Occupy is with us and always will be with us.
That's a great point. Though its legacy or exactly accomplishments or that type of thing may not be quantifiable, these types of debates have sparked to a level that we've never seen them before. And I think whether or not they walk away with saying we did that or we accomplished this, they know that they've at least raised awareness and at least pushed forth a very important conversation, one that needs to take place.
That is true, and in fact, if I may be allowed just a moment, that wasn't lost on the judge who gave the city of Boston finally permission to remove the occupiers. The judge wrote, "There can be no doubt that at this riding in Boston, and perhaps throughout the country, an enclave of tents and in a public park connotes the Occupy movement and their 99% 1% view. Matters of finance and the present economic situation are of intense concern to many people. There is considerable media attention devoted to Occupy sites, and most articles, per journalistic custom, restate the Occupy position. The media has clearly understood the plaintiff's contribution to the national conversation." The judge didn't miss it, and I don't think that, criticism of the contrary notwithstanding, I don't think that America missed it.
Nope, definitely not. And I loved your point right after that. You said, it sounded like that was written by one of the Occupy protesters itself, and I think that was the point that they're trying to get across, is that, it is the 99%, and then that people like that are out there everywhere.
That's right. I agree.
Perfect. Well, once again, that's Steve Honig of Duane Morris and The Law and Other Anomalies. For more legal commentary on Occupy movement, Steve has several great posts on this, so be sure to check it out. His blog is at honiglawblog.com, and of course, for more commentary on it, be sure to check out lxbn.lexblog.com. Thanks, Steve.
Colin, thank you very much, and take care.